Good day, everybody. We are back here again with English First Additional Language. My name is Kesoba Karaleya. I'm an English First Additional Language teacher. And today we are going to be treating visual literacy and under the subtopic, analyzing cartoons. I believe you've already had a visual literacy lesson, but that was on analyzing advertisements. Here we are going to be treating cartoons, which forms part of paper 1, and it also weighs 10 marks, just like the summary, just like the advertisement. However, please do not take for granted these 10 marks because they are very crucial in you passing your paper 1. Okay, so this is what a cartoon looks like. We have visual literacy. I am going to start, first of all, just by defining what visual literacy is. Visual literacy is basically an ability to comprehend what the drawings on cartoons, the drawings on newspaper articles, the drawings on advertisements, on graphs, any picture for that matter, what they are trying to communicate to you. With cartoons here, we have got an example cartoon of Dennis the Menace. Many of you will be familiar with Dennis the Menace, especially if you read comic books or if you buy Sunday magazines, you will know Dennis the Menace. There are many other examples that examiners use to question you during the exam. Examples like Madam and Eve, Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes. You also have maybe Tom and Jerry, not really, it's an anime. We also have another one like Haga and Helga. These are some of the cartoons that we come across, especially under exam purposes. As it has been alluded before, it is very important for us to have reading strategies. For you to be able to respond to questions set by examiners, you must have proper reading strategies. These reading strategies are going to assist you in responding to the different levels that an examiner will use to question you during exam. Let us look at some of the examples, as many as we can handle, of the reading strategies. 1, I will go back. It is important for you when you are using reading strategies. The first one, it is to predict. What do you do when you predict a text? You predict what it is all about. Once you see a cartoon like this, you ask yourself questions and you say, I believe this is going to be about fishing. Why? Because you are looking at the setting, you are looking at the characters. The next one, you visualize. You use these images to visualize everything that is happening about the characters. You visualize the events, and you put this in your head, and you understand better what the cartoon will be about. You do the next level of a strategy. You question yourself. Ask yourself questions. Do I understand what is happening in this particular text? How will you manage to answer those questions? By looking at the words in the text, by looking at the pictures in the text. This will assist you in responding to the questions that you may have about a particular text. Please remember that if you cannot answer those questions, you need to reread that text for better understanding. The next strategy is to basically ask yourself also, can you identify what the purpose of this text is? Remember that people who write these texts, they have a purpose. Can you identify the main theme? Can you identify the main ideas within a particular text? Also, can you infer meaning? When you infer meaning, you basically come to conclusions about certain aspects of the text itself. Remember, you need to also know how to make connections. You also need to know how to evaluate a text. What this means that to evaluate, basically, it is to form opinions. So if you are asked, do you agree this is funny? You have a right to say, no, it is not funny because I love fish. I don't want fish to die, and what Dennis is doing is wrong. Or you may say, yes, it is funny. It is funny because the father is really worried about the fishbowl. We are going to go into explaining further what multimodal texts are. Now, within visual literacy, you've already been told that visual literacy is the ability to comprehend the drawings that are within advertisements or within cartoons. So an example of a multimodal text is that an advert or a cartoon, or you can go further into saying text B in the comprehension section, or text G in the language section, question 5. What are multimodal texts? Multimodal texts are different from written texts. They do not only have print, they also have visual material. So we get the visual and the written material together to form one text. And because it encompasses two different texts, we call them multimodal. What is the purpose of using multimodal text? You use visual literacy using multimodal text and you apply your knowledge of these images and these visuals, and you apply them so that you see if you can understand how they support the words or the written words that are within that text. So please remember, multimodal texts are not just print text, they are not just prose, they actually have two types. They have visual and they have written material. Let us delve deeper into what a cartoon is. Please remember, a cartoon is a drawing. However, cartoonists, they draw these pictures so that they can bring humor or even give you an idea of an event in the news. They can even try and create a drawing, maybe a humorous picture about a personality which is well known or famous, or just to give you a story. The very animes that you watch on television, they are cartoons, but they have a life story to tell us. There is a purpose to drawing cartoons. A purpose most usually known for cartoons is to make us laugh. So they are humorous. They also are drawn to bring attention, to draw attention to certain events they want us to know about. For example, let's say what is happening in our country right now. They could draw a picture of Zweli Mkhize. They could draw a cartoon of Angie Motshekga, because this is a well-known personality, or it is a situation or an event that is taking place in our country. We also draw cartoons to highlight current and social or political issues. You will know when it comes to cartoons, especially in history, that they are connected to analyzing cartoons also in language, because you see the social issue that is discussed. At the moment, we are, always talking about going back to school. So a cartoonist may draw such a frame so that they make us aware of that social event that is taking place. Even COVID-19, we can draw a cartoon based on that. What are cartoons' objectives? The aim of drawing cartoons may be to inform, maybe to educate, or maybe to entertain. Let us look at some of the most important concepts in cartoon analysis. We've been talking about a cartoonist. What is a cartoonist? Cartoonists are like illustrators. They are people who draw the cartoon. So you will find that in the examination, an examiner will allude to the word cartoonist by asking you a question. What is the cartoonist's purpose of drawing Helga in this manner? Why did the cartoonist write bold font on this particular word? So when they speak of cartoonist, you need to be aware that they are talking about the person who drew the cartoon. Then we go to cartoon strip. A cartoon strip is basically a series of drawings where each separate drawing tells part of the story. Normally, you may have a frame which tells an entire issue or covers an entire issue. But with a strip, you have a series of frames that tell you a story from beginning to the end. And what is a frame? A frame is that piece of drawing that you find within the cartoon strip. When it comes to frames, it is each separate drawing of a cartoon strip, and you need to be aware, as learners in the exam, that cartoon strips have got different frames, and each frame is going to be given a number, frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, and the examiner will expect you to respond to a question based on each frame unless they need your entire evaluative skill to talk about the whole strip. The last one is punchline. What is a punchline? By now, as a person who normally makes jokes or jests with friends, you need to know that when you make fun or when you have a joke to tell, you cannot tell that joke unless there is a point at the end where somebody will laugh. So the last few words of a cartoon or the last drawing of a cartoon, which makes it amusing or clever or both, is called a punchline. Here are vivid examples of what a frame or what a cartoon strip looks like. This is a single frame of a cartoon from a newspaper article from a well-known cartoonist called Zapiro. This is what a single frame looks like. Then we have what we call a cartoon strip. Now this is a series of frames. Remember that I've already told you in the examination, the examiner will actually give these frames each a number. This will be called frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4. And when you are asked questions in the exam, the examiner will say, refer to frame 1, refer to frame 2, refer to frame 3, refer to frame 4. Please remember, if you are asked a question about a particular frame, you cannot use evidence from a second frame or the next frame. You must concentrate on that one frame that the examiner has made you aware of. Let us look at this cartoon. It's actually quite humorous. Although, please, subliminally, you mustn't take this as a message that you need to use this. I know many times learners, when we give them specific texts, visual text, and they find it funny, you find yourself wanting to experiment this in real life. Remember what I said, cartoons are not like real people. Therefore, do not do anything that you see in the cartoon because you might find yourself in trouble. So I don't want to be sending subliminal messages for you to do wrong, but I need for us to find the jest in this particular cartoon. Let's read it. It says, Madam and Eve, this is Madam in her car with her mother, and somebody on the outside of the frame says, give me $10 or I'll pull the trigger. And in the second frame, we see that there is a thug there who is trying to maybe mug Madam. And it is quite hilarious that he says, I'll pull the trigger, but you see that the trigger is actually pointing at himself. So Madam is in awe. And obviously, because she's so shocked in the third frame, she gives him the money, and the thug says, thanks, have a nice day. And the last frame, you have to give him points for creativity. And this is where the punchline is, because honestly, as much as it is so shocking what they just experienced, it is funny that this man threatened his own life if they don't give him the money. Let us look at caricatures. This is such a big word, but it's actually quite a lovely word because it just means these people. What is a caricature? A caricature is a drawing that exaggerates or distorts a figure. I'm sure you can identify with some of these faces. Now, a caricature is a drawing that exaggerates or distorts a figure. I'm sure you can identify with some of these faces. Now, normally when you say you are making a joke about someone, you will exaggerate their most prominent features. For example, I'm sure you can see a famous person here, Nelson Mandela. We'll start there. Nelson Mandela was known for his always bubbly personality, always so happy. And that is why he's been drawn with a very wide smile and a cheerful look on his face. So the smile and the cheeks are exaggerated just to draw attention to the person that he is. In every cartoon, just like in many other visual literacy aspects, we have key features. We are going to look at several key features of a cartoon. The first one that we're going to start off with is the setting as well as the background. How can we tell just by studying a cartoon that where is it taking place and when is it taking place? First of all, we can start with the text box. Some examiners like to write what is happening in the cartoon in case you are not familiar with the cartoon. This is a cartoon strip on a character called Zitz. And Zitz is with his mother in the kitchen. Now, this is just a text box. You don't only use that as a way to understand the background and the setting. You need to go deeper into the cartoon strip itself to understand where is this setting, when is it. Now, if you look at frame 1, for example, you will see that in frame 1, Zitz is with his mother. But how do we know they are in the kitchen? A few things are giving us an idea. There's a bowl of salad, a salad bowl. There's some ketchup there or maybe peri-peri. You see that she is holding a hot pot and there is some steam coming out from her, from the pot. So where can this take place except in a kitchen? And that is why it is important for you to read the text and understand its background and setting so that when an examiner says, where do you think the characters are? Just from reading the text box as well as reading the strip itself or analyzing it, you can tell by taking evidence from the things around the characters of where they are. The next key feature are speech bubbles. What are speech bubbles? Speech bubbles are basically ways in which the characters express themselves. Please remember, I'm going to go back. Please remember that these are drawings. We would not know what is happening with these characters had there not been speech bubbles. Now we know what Zitz is saying. Need any help, Mom? And Mom says, yes, you can toss the salad. Now we know the conversation that is taking place here. Why? It is because of speech bubbles. There are different ways that characters can express themselves using speech bubbles. The first speech bubble that I want to look at is the thought bubble. What is a thought bubble? A thought bubble is a bubble which has rounded edges and circles for a tail. You can see the thought. It has rounded edges and it has rounded tail, circles. We also have what we call a speech bubble. A speech bubble is basically speech inside a bubble. And with this one, you see that the bubble itself is not rounded, it's just straight. Sometimes you don't actually see the bubble itself, but you just see the speech and a line pointing to a particular character. So we know the character is speaking because of that line. Now, the next one is the shout bubble. A shout bubble, unlike the thought bubble as well as the speech bubble, it has spiky edges. Now, this suggests that not only is this person screaming, they are not just screaming, they're screaming loud. That is why the bubble is so spiky. Sometimes the shout will not necessarily be inside a spiky bubble. It may be written in bold, large font. And maybe instead of just the bubble, you will see a spiky tail going towards the character itself. Here are examples of what I have been elaborating. We have a cartoon strip here, and I'm just going to show you so that you are able to identify how these characters are communicating. You have, for example, in this particular frame, this frame has got what we call a shout bubble. Why? Because of the spiky edges on the bubble itself. And this indicates that the person is shouting. We have in this fourth frame, we have a speech bubble. This is a speech in a bubble, and it just indicates that the person is talking. And the last one, the last frame, the third frame, where the girl says, no, I didn't. Oh, never mind. This is obviously in her head, and so she is thinking. You need to be able to respond to the questions when an examiner asks you, what is the girl doing in frame 3? You need to be able to say, she's thinking. All because evidence is in the speech bubble used to on her head. Now, the next key feature is language. As I am speaking right now, I am hardly using slang. I am hardly using colloquial language. What this suggests is that I am using formal register to address you. Even in cartoons, cartoons will be portrayed to be speaking formally or to be speaking informally. So you need to be able to use that as a key feature when responding to a question about how do we know maybe that they are having fun. You can use the response as they are using an informal register. How do we know that this meeting is serious? Because they are using formal register. So if we look at the words inside this particular cartoon, I will read it very quickly. This is Calvin and Hobbes, by the way. You need to know your cartoons, okay? Calvin and Hobbes. So this is Hobbes, this is Calvin. I want you to know that Hobbes is actually Calvin's imaginary friend, but Hobbes is very important in Calvin's life. And he says, It says on the back of this record that the composer could play the piano at age 3. He wrote his first symphony when he was 4. That's amazing. And Calvin is standing thinking with his mouth, hand on his mouth, and he said, when I was 4, all I could do, I think, was I was toilet trained, didn't write symphonies and all. I'm sure you can see this is an example of a formal register. Let us look at punctuation. Punctuation as a key feature in cartoons is absolutely important because it conveys how people are feeling or how they are portraying their emotions. We have different punctuation marks that we cartoonists really love to use in their illustrations. The question mark, the exclamation mark, the ellipsis. These 3 are most prominent when it comes to cartoon analysis. You will see the question mark on frame 1. You see that there's an ellipsis on frame 2. You also see that there are exclamation marks in frame 3. We have another ellipsis here. These punctuation marks are absolutely important in us understanding why they've been used. The ellipsis, for example, you need to understand that the ellipsis is used either for suspense or to tell us that a sentence is incomplete or someone has interrupted you. We have emanata. Now, some of you may find this as something new to you. However, it is important for you to understand that in cartoons, characters, because many of them sometimes don't have speech bubbles, they will have these little symbols or lines or squiggles on top of their heads. You know, like a halo. If somebody has a halo on their head, what do you think it suggests? It suggests that they are either angelic or maybe they are innocent. Now, there are different other types of emanata, and I will give you a few right now. The first one is the question mark. A question mark may be used to show confusion or tension or anxiety. So if somebody has a question mark on their head, obviously I can't have a question mark now because I'm real, but if my face had to be drawn and I did this, the question mark will be on my head to suggest that I'm confused and I want to understand more. Some cartoon characters will close their eyes, lay their head down. But how do we know that they are sleeping? You will find that there's an emanata of a Z on their head or a Z. Sometimes it's just 1, other times it's maybe 3 or more. And then little squiggles. These are used to indicate that somebody is either very angry, and so we cannot decipher the exact words that they are using. And therefore, the cartoonist will write them as these little squiggles. But then, some of these squiggles go further to suggest not only frustration, but that somebody is swearing. And then we've got the next emanata, the light bulb. The light bulb, if you see it, it means maybe somebody has a great plan or a great idea. You say, Eureka, I've got a plan. Now, please realize that as we continue with the lesson, you will also learn about motion lines or movement in cartoons. Please note that you should not confuse emanata with motion lines, and you should not confuse emanata with onomatopoeia, which is another form of showing what the sounds that are being made by a character. Let's look at font. Font is a very important way of suggesting that somebody is screaming or somebody is talking lightly. Now, font size or the boldness or lightness of the font suggests that somebody is screaming or somebody is, again, making emphasis. But I live here. And somebody says, Millies. You see? These are emphasized in the way the font has been written. The size of the font is different from the normal fond. Then we've got different actions, which I would like to go into the next frame for. Now, we come to motion lines. Remember I told you about movement. Motions is indicated by vertical, curved, and diagonal lines. We see in this particular one, on the left-hand side, we see that the ball is in the air by the lines that show that it's curving, it's going straight, it's swooshing through the air, very lovely like that. Then here is Tom and Jerry. Obviously, Tom is very, he's always mischievous, kicking Jerry like that. And we can tell he's kicking, not only because Jerry's in the air, but, Tom, is it Tom? Okay. And the lines show that his leg is on foot, has just kicked him. And here he is trying to catch himself from falling hard. We also have motion lines that suggest speed. The man in the middle, he's swiftly moving, and the one on the extreme left is running for his life. We also, motion lines also indicate if somebody is leaving a frame or not. Okay, let us look at irony and satire. Before I go into explanation, let's look at this cartoon. It says, children, what do you want to be when you grow up? We know that when you ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? They will always say, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a policeman. But this particular one says alive. And cartoonists use this to show irony. Irony is basically when you get an unexpected response. You know normally what the response should be, but then you get an unexpected one. In class, learners should be saying they want to aspire to be better than just alive. I know being alive is the best. However, you want to have a career of sorts. And here it is shown that, it's ironic that they could say in class that they want to be alive. And then we have satire. Satire is basically a funny way of showing a very serious topic. So here in this cartoon, you can see that unfortunately, things are different in schools. There's more violence than there is teaching and learning. And so it looks funny, yes, to the eye, but it's actually a very serious issue. An extra example is here, where you see that it is quite ironic that police are using excessive force to get people, for example, to stop smoking. And we all know that we see guns coming out when there is a criminal activity happening. So it's quite ironic that the same kind of force is used on people who are normal civilians and those that are obviously thugs or criminals. It is also showing a very clear example of satire here, because it's a serious issue. However, it has been made into almost a comic or a humorous situation. Okay, so let's look at body language. Body language refers to basically your body movement, your expressions, your hands, your body position. And if we're going to look at this body language, you need to be able to understand what is happening here. Let us look closely at this particular cartoon. If you look at this cartoon, please note it is from Zitz. Again, this is Zitz's mother. She's obviously come into the bathroom and something is definitely wrong with Zitz. And what does she do? She gasps. And this is an example of Emanata. Oh my gosh, this is an example of screaming and emphasizing. There is the exclamation mark. There is the edgy, spiky tail going to her mouth. This suggests that she is shouting. And she says, oh my gosh, how can we tell that she is distraught? She cannot believe what is happening here. We see with her body language. Please, learners, ensure that when you are responding to questions from examiners about body language, and they ask you, what is happening in this frame? Please do not say, how can we tell that Zitz's mom is horrified? Please don't say, because of her body language. Explain, use correct vocabulary as to what is the body language that you are referring to. Make reference to what you see. What do you see? Her arms are outstretched. Her palms are outward. Her fingers are pointing upward. Her mouth is wide open. Her eyes were wide open. And she's bending forward because she cannot believe what she's seeing. So these are the body language expressions that you must allude to when you are responding to questions about what's happening in frames. Let's look at some more examples of body language as well as facial expressions. What is happening here? His mouth is facing upward because he's smiling and he's happy. And we see onomatopoeia here, wop, wop, wop. This word is drawn in the way that it sounds. And we can see that she's shouting. That's why there's a jagged speech bubble here. And she's hysterical. Her arms are stretched out and her mouth is wide open. And here we see an asterisk, which is another way to show confusion or that somebody's in a thought process. And you can see that his face is blank because he is a bit confused. And certainly that's because his mother is in despair. He's just nailed at the table. And the mother is asking, what are you doing? And he's confused as to why he would be asked that when the evidence is quite clear. Okay, we will move to eyes and eyebrows. Please remember that when the eyes are wide open, then it means that somebody is shocked or surprised or bewildered. But then if they are small, it means that person is maybe intense and maybe angry with you. The eyebrows always work hand in hand with the eyes. So please be wary that when the eyebrows are facing down, maybe the person is frowning and not very happy. And they also show a whole lot of emotion, like surprise. The mouth also facing downward, facing upward. We all do these things every single day. Even when you send your WhatsApp text to your friend, you know when you are happy with something, you will send a smiley face. You need to use these features to be able to answer questions about the emotions and mood and tone of somebody inside a character, a cartoon strip. Okay, so even the hands. When somebody clenches their fist, please note, once you see somebody clenching their fist, get the hell out of there, run for your life. Or even when somebody points a finger. And even when somebody's folding their arms, it means that they are not interested in what you are saying. However, if somebody has a smile on their face, holding their hands together or touching you gently, you know that that is a very amicable conversation. The arms also, like I've already spoken about, folded arms means somebody's not interested in talking to you. Somebody's leaning forward, it means they're ready for a fight. So please give them space. Okay, we are going to skip to this particular cartoon of Ditwits, and I just want to go through some of the things we have covered so far. What have we covered? We've covered setting, background, and here it tells us classroom in Harare. Okay, there. We go to the next one. We see facial expressions, body language. We see the dress, and the teacher is caricatured with her glasses and neat dress to suggest she's a teacher. The learner also has innocence, very beautiful face, wide open eyes, and cute hairstyle. That's how we know she's a learner. And then we have the fact that her eyes are so dreary and tired to suggest that she is not feeling very optimistic. She's feeling hopeless. And of course, it is important for you to look at the verbal clue. Old MacDonald had a farm. We know that the song goes, E-I-E-I-O, and in his farm he had some dogs, E-I-E-I-O. Now, if you look at this one, you will see that Old MacDonald had a farm, and that is all. Why is that? We have to understand. You evaluate, you infer meaning. And here you will notice that Old MacDonald had, in the past tense, a farm. He doesn't have anymore. And that is obviously after those social issues where people's farms were taken from them. Okay, let us look at what we have covered so far, things that you need to keep close reference to. Okay, whatever you do, please, when you are asked questions in the examination, Do not come up with answers from your own head. Pay close reference to the cartoon. Refer to what is on the cartoon itself. Pay careful attention to the body language of the characters, the facial expressions, the font, the punctuation. Pay special attention to those, the setting, the background, for you to be able to respond. Remember, it is 10 marks. And out of these 10 marks, from all the features that I have explained to you, that's where the 10 marks come from. You need to understand the key features for you to be able to respond to the questions posed by examiners. Please remember also that there are figures of speech that are used in cartoons. For example, puns, satire, sarcasm, irony. Remember, I also used onomatopoeia. These are some of the figures of speech that you will find in cartoons. And how do we interpret cartoons? When you interpret cartoons, if you can answer these questions, who are the characters? Describe their clothes. What is each character doing? Describe their body language. Describe their facial expression in each frame. Where are the characters? Describe the setting. If you can answer these questions, who is speaking? Which words have been emphasized? And the most important question, remember, about punchline? Humor, because most cartoons are about expressing humor. So, the punchline. Do you find this cartoon funny? Remember that you are allowed to say that, no, I don't find it funny. But please remember, you cannot say, I don't find it funny because I don't share the sense of humor of the cartoonist. No. Remember what we said in the beginning here. We said make close reference. Make close reference to the text. Do not just speak from nowhere. Make close reference to the text that you are given. So if you are asked if something is funny, for example, and you don't find it funny, say, I don't find it funny because they are making fun of Hagar, let's say, and I don't find that humorous because he's in pain. You know, give a substantiation of why you don't find it funny. Let's look at this cartoon of Garfield. It's called Garfield and Oddie, but here you find Garfield is with a mouse. So let us explore some of those questions. Who are the characters? Garfield and a mouse. Describe their clothes. Obviously, when you find a cartoon on animals, they won't have clothes on them. They're not wearing any clothes. What is each character doing? They are both thinking. How do we know that they're thinking? Because each character has speech bubbles on them. Do you see that? Describe each character's facial expression or body language. If you've been paying close attention to the cartoon itself, you'll know that the cat, Garfield, his eyes are half closed and he's not interested in what the mouse is saying. And in the last frame, the mouse is leaning in towards him to try and shout the words that he's saying. Let's look at the cartoon actually for more understanding. The cat comes up to Garfield, the mouse comes up to Garfield and says, are you really turning 27 on Sunday? And Garfield goes, yes, I am. If you know Garfield, you would know he speaks with a very low voice. Yes, I am. Wow. And there's an ellipsis there to suggest that there is some kind of a breather, a pause. And he goes, 27. And still Garfield is bored out of his wits. And the next last frame says, where the punchline actually is, hey, do you see that he's staggering his words? And he's actually shouting them. How do we know? The exclamation marks, the bolded large font. Hey, I think that's great. This suggests what? This is a form of stereotype where young people believe that when somebody turns older, they lose their sense of hearing. That is why the mouse is screaming in his ear. So describe the setting. We don't know where the setting is. It could be anywhere in the house. And who is speaking? Obviously the mouse and the cat. And the last questions, which words have been emphasized? The last words in frame 3. They are bigger and bolder, and there are exclamation marks to indicate he's screaming. Ellipsis is to show that words are spoken separately. Hey, I think that's great. Just to make sure that Garfield hears every word. And we look at the humor. The last question, do you find this humorous? Of course it's funny. It's Garfield's birthday on Sunday. He's turning 27. That's very old for a cat, you know that. When animals or people get older, they lose their ability to hear properly. That's why the mouse is shouting at Garfield. This creates humor because Garfield, unfortunately for the mouse, can hear properly. He has the ability to hear even though he is older. So at the end, let us ponder some points when analyzing cartoons. Emotions are very important. They are usually conveyed through facial expressions and body language, capital letters, large font, exclamation marks. These are used for when a cartoon is screaming, a cartoon character is screaming or shouting. Onomatopoeia, which are sound words, are used to create sound. Did you see when Calvin was nailing the table? There was that onomatopoeia sound, whop, whop, whop. Humor is created using irony, a pun, and wordplay, because puns are wordplays. Okay, just want to come to the end here and say to you, just like visual literacy, cartoons and advertisements, which are multimodal texts, even people can be multimodal. You know that we've got a heart, we've got a head, we've got a mind, we've got a pen, we've got a tongue. And just as Nelson Mandela put it, a good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination. But when you add to that a literate tongue and a pen, then you have something very special. Be multimodal. Use everything that you have to support who you are when you grow up and you grow better. Thank you so much.